What in the world is happening with King County real estate? Whoa, doggy. Let's check it out. You got 10 years here, baby. 10 years, which goes back to 2015, which is wrong on a lot of levels. 2015 is 10 years ago. But what you're looking at is the green is the supply, new listings that came to market. Blue is the demand, number of homes that came off the market, went under contract. And a couple of things you can see really clearly in this time frame is inventory over the last 3 years has been going back up, right? 2023, inventory just fell off the cliff, baby. Nothing. No one decided to sell. Why? Because they'd have to pay 3 times as much in interest to buy a new house, and they still needed a place to live. So they were never going to move. So they stopped. 2024, people started to have to move. And this year, people really did have to move. So they did. It jumped all the way up to really, pandemic and sort of pre-pandemic levels. This is 2017 levels, pretty consistent in King County with that. But the buyers never came back. The buyers have still been off the market. Now, that means prices have been suppressed. The increase in interest rates was designed to suppress buyers. That's why you do that, to suppress prices. And it's done that. It's done its job really, really well. Now, what does that mean for the last couple of months for this year? Let's just look at this real quick. You can see it better in this graph. Come on, there we go. All right, so this is the last 2 years. So you can see that August here, this is August? Yeah, August, inventory came way down. Buyers stayed the same. Well, if May and June had all this inventory with the same number of buyers, it was really hard to sell in July. June and July were really hard months to sell a home in. August, it got better. Okay, why? Because the same number of buyers with less new listings evens it out, makes it easier to sell, harder to buy. So when I said it was hot buyer summer, I meant it. I was saying that in May because you could see this coming. Now, it's pretty standard that a buyer should be, if you're a buyer in this market, you should be able to find some of these guys over here that listed in July that haven't come down in price fast enough, and you should be able to get a deal. No one wants to keep their home on the market through the holidays, end of summer. You should be able to get a deal there. If you're selling, you have a better time to list now than you did 2 months ago. There's less competition and the same number of buyers. That's pretty good. It's not predictable that the buyers are going to go away anytime soon. So this is July, August, September of last year, October of last year, pretty safe. September, October should be predictably close to the same number of buyers. Okay, won't be until November and December where the buyers go away completely or drop precipitously. But even then, the inventory will drop the same degree, so you'll be okay. So if you're selling, you're better off selling now than you were 2 months ago, and you should be okay for the rest of the year. Pretty standard. Way better than waiting till the spring when you have all this predictable competition. So that's where we're at right now. If you're buying, find someone who left their house on the market too long and make a deal. If you're selling, let's get to market before end of October. Let's get in the next couple of months. Let's get you in there and get you listed. See what we can do, get that home sold. All right. That's what I got for you for King County. If you have questions about your situation, because every situation is unique, everybody needs something different, I'm here to help. That's what I do. Aaron Hendon with Christine and Company at eXp Realty. Talk to you soon. Hey, what in the world's happening with Kitsap County real estate? Well, let's check it out. It's sort of a mashup between King County and Pierce County in terms of its performance. It's a little closer to, it's really in between the two. So what you're looking at is the last 2 years of supply and demand, new listings, green, houses under contract, blue. Okay. And you can see a massive gap earlier in the year, right? July, May. This is May. Yeah, May. Lots of listings in May. Selling in the spring is dumb. Why? Because everyone does it. Don't do that. because these houses that went on in May had a hard time selling in June and July because there were so many more listings than there were buyers. Now, August, look at that. Very few buyers, same number. I mean, very few sellers, same number of buyers. What? Easier to sell. So if you're looking to buy right now in Kitsap County, you want to find one of these people that listed in May or June that hasn't lowered their price fast enough and that's still sitting around and they don't want to be there come holidays. Should be able to get a deal. If you're selling, way better that you waited till now to list it. Why? Because there's the same number, a little bit more buyers and way less competition. Same number of buyers in the fall. What? Same number of buyers in the fall. Why? Everyone says list in the spring. Why? I have no idea. It's crazy. It's insane. There's the same number of buyers right now and less competition. That's the way it is in Kitsap right now. And that's the way it is almost every normal year. So, but here's the other piece of this. Every house is different. Every neighborhood, every buyer, every seller is different. If you need guidance around this, which you really should consider yourself need guidance around it rather than this is a macro version. You want to really look to see what's happening with each house and each neighborhood. Let me know. That's what I'm here for. Aaron Hendon at Christine Company over at EXP Realty. Love to help you. Give me a call. What in the world's happening with Pierce County real estate? Well, let's look. Let me blow that up for you. This is the last 2 years in Pierce County of supply and demand. Green is the supply. New listings. Blue is the demand. Number of homes that got sold. And let's see what's happening. So if you want a historic perspective, go look at King County because this is the same historically over the last 10 years. But let's just look at the last couple so that you can see where you're at right now. Interestingly here, so you see the green, the slope downward inventory decreasing. Now it's been more inventory for the beginning of the year. This made it really hard to sell your home in June and July because buyers stayed so steady. With that increase in inventory, more supply, steady demand means prices get suppressed. That's how it went in June and July of this year. Now, August, you can see supply came down, but what happened to demand? It went up. Little small tick up in demand. Easier to sell and harder to buy in August in Pierce County, meaning, look, you can't time the market, okay? That's crazy. You don't know what next month, you don't know what tomorrow, you don't know what the next minute is going to bring. Don't time anything, but know the environment in which you're buying. And in the environment, this environment you shouldn't wait for a deal, okay? If you can find someone who listed in May or June and you can get them to lower their price because they've been sitting too long, great. You should be able to find someone like that. But there's not going to be a ton in Pierce County, and there's not going to be a ton of extra inventory. There's going to be bidding wars. There's going to be increases. It probably won't go up much higher than asking, just given 6-7% interest makes it difficult. But there will be interest in every new listing. Why? Because look at the small gap between buyer demand and new listings. It's teeny. New listings are going to get a lot of interest in Pierce County. So if you're selling, way better you sell now than in the spring. Whatever that bullshit is about selling in the spring, I don't know. It's craziness. You don't want to sell when there's more competition, ever. There weren't even more buyers in the spring. There are more buyers now and less competition. Best time of year to sell right now. Then, if you're buying, you're either got to find someone who has had their house on the market too long, or be fast, be ready, and be strong with your offers because that's a relatively narrow gap between new listings and buyers. So every situation is unique, though. Every buyer is different. Every seller is different. Every neighborhood is different. If you have questions about your situation, I'd love to help you. Let me know what I can do for you. I'm Aaron Hendon with Christine Company at EXP Realty. Peace out. See you next month. What in the world's happening with Snohomish County real estate? Ooh, boy, look at this. All right, you got the supply and demand for the last 2 years over here. And green is the supply, new listings, blue demand, number of houses that went under contract. And you can see demand is pretty steady over the last 3 years. In fact, it would be over the last 2 years, it's really steady over the last 3 years if you look further back in time. But notice how inventory went up this year drastically. Um, it's now coming back down, pretty seasonally average for us. But the buyer demand is the same. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if you were selling over the summer, you had a harder time selling than any previous year. There was a lot of inventory and not a lot of buyers. If you look at this historically, if you go back, you can look at the King County stuff. But as long as we're here, let's just show you. You'll see buyer demand is down about half of what it was prior to the pandemic. But you see, just dropped off the table in 2023. But you can see inventory has been creeping back up. So it's gotten harder and harder to sell in Snohomish over the last couple of years. Inventory is creeping up. Supply is creeping up. Now, this month, right, last month, let's go back, show you what this means for last month. Inventory came down in August, pretty seasonally average. That's what happens at the end of the year. But demand even poked up a little bit. So it was easier to sell in August than it was in July. And that's the case. If you had something to sell, you were able to sell it in August easier than you were had you listed in June or July. What does this mean going forward? Well, no one knows the future, but what's predictable here is if you're selling, you're going to have an easier time selling now than you would in the summer, which is why all that nonsense about selling in the spring is just that nonsense. And if you're buying, you're going to need to find someone who listed it in June or July that hasn't come down in price fast enough, and you should be able to get some kind of deal there. Looking for new listings, you should be prepared. I don't know if it's going to go for multiple offers, but it's probably not going to sit around for as long as it did when they listed in June or July. Okay, so it's really neighborhood specific, site specific, week specific. You really do want to get someone on your side. Oh, someone like, I don't know, me, to work with you to determine what the best strategy is given where you're looking, because you can see this is a volatile market. This August was very different than July, very different than June. September is likely to be different again. So if you have questions about buying or selling, let me know so I can look at your situation and we can determine what the best course of action for you is. I'm Aaron Hendon with Christine Company over DXP. I'd love to help you with that. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, what in the world's happening in Vashon Real Estate? Let's check it out. Because it's weird. As always, keep it Vashon weird. What you got here is the last 2 years of supply and demand on Vashon. The green is the supply, number of new listings, and the blue is the demand, number of homes that went under contract. And what do you see? Well, over the last 6 months, 6 months, look at all that extra inventory. There are more houses available on this island than there have been any time in the last 10 years. It's unbelievable the number of listings that are here. And buying demand was going down, 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 down over the last 5 months. Now, it popped back up in August, so there was an opportunity for buyers to suck up some of that inventory that's been sitting around. As inventory sits around, the price goes down. That's what happens. Sellers decide, oh, well, I'm not selling at this price. The only lever a seller has really is price. So price is beginning to soften. Buyers swooped in, picked it up. Now, there's still a ton of inventory on this island. So if you're selling, you got to price it really strategically because there is a lot of competition. I mean, 10-year historic kind of lot of competition. And what's predictable is September is going to bring less buyers than August. It's shocking if somehow September brought more buyers. Almost never there are more buyers in September than there were in August. So less competition, less demand, less buyers, and a ton of competition means if you're selling, you got to be really strategic. If you're buying, you should have the pick of the litter. You should be able to really get yourself a deal right now on Vashon, a relative deal. I mean, prices aren't, there's no cratering of the market here. But there's definitely a softening, and there's definitely no increase in prices happening these days on Vashon. So every area is different, though. Morey is different than Tahlequah, is different than Burton. So every neighborhood is a little bit different on Vashon. And every buyer situation is different. So that's what I'm here for, to sort that out with you. Let me know questions you have about the area. But right now, great time for buyers. Sellers need to really be strategic. Let me know what I can do for you. Aaron Hendon with Christine Company, EXP. Love to help you. Talk to you soon. Bye.